As the great Kaya once said, you put your trust in a nigga, stupid how you figure. When I tell you I am so happy that I do not date men, I don't know which movie has worse men. I don't know if it's Showgirls or this movie because, girl, my God. The lengths niggas will go to hide some trifling ass shit that they done did is crazy. Imagine you get a call from your wife, your husband, your partner, whoever. You know, we're all inclusive over here.
Of all gender appropriations and the pronouns,
And it's a detective saying that they have your partner in custody because they're being implicated in a murder of a random woman who was found dead in a loft that you knew nothing about. And they go on to say that this person has been sharing a loft with 4 of their best friends, and they've been using it as like a cheating den, a cheating oasis. Right. I would actively lose my shit. Anyway, what's up? My name is Keishay, aka Shay, aka Shake and Bake, and welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, we are going to be breaking down the Loft 2015. The Loft 2015 is about a group of serial cheaters who found a dead woman in said loft that they were using as a cheating den. But the gag is the guys are the only ones who, one, know about the loft, and they're the only ones who have a key to the loft, or so they think. I picked this movie because it low-key offers up some perspective on the conversation that was like happening a while ago about whether you would be friends with a cheater because I'll probably make a video about that on my answer, but I do think that the men in this video are terrible husbands, and it trickled very much into their friendship because they're even worse friends, if I'm being honest. So without further ado, let's get into The Loft 2015 because this one's a doozy. Okay, this movie, spoiler alert, disclaimers, all of the things. We will be going into major spoilers of the movie. What I had said before was the spoiler-free little synopsis. So go watch the movie, come back to the video, and, we can discuss what we think about it in the comments. This movie jumps back and forth through time, so I'm going to do my best to let you know where we are in the film's timeline. It is told through present day events and flashbacks, mainly through flashbacks. So I'll do my best to keep you guys updated on when we're flashing back and when we are here in present day. The movie begins with a man falling onto a car in slow motion, yeah. And then the camera pans up and you see another man who is looking down from a balcony. We don't know who either of these men are yet, but we will definitely be coming back to that towards the end. That will come up again later, obviously. After that little scene, we cut to an interrogation room where cheater number 1, Billy Butcher, yeah, we're all The Boys fans. I love The Boys. It's one of my favorite shows. But his name in this movie is Vincent. And Vincent is explaining that he had nothing to do with it, and whatever he's talking about, it was a setup and it was staged. And the police obviously do not believe him, so they just kind of brush past that like, yeah. So go over the events of this morning one more time. That's where we jump into the actual tale of events that happened this morning, or so we think. After they tell him to go over the events of this morning, we are taken to the loft where cheater number 2, Luke, is taking groceries into the loft to restock the fridge, I guess. He has a bunch of bottles of wine and stuff. When he arrives, he sees that there's a girl handcuffed and bloodied on the bed, and he like drops everything on the floor. And the guy who plays Luke is in Prison Break. If y'all have seen Prison Break, you know that show is bomb. And he was bomb in it. Wentworth Miller, yeah, he ate that role up. But yeah, in this movie, his name is Luke, and he is the second cheater that has been shown so far. We're still in the loft, and Vince is the second person to arrive to the loft after Luke calls him. And Luke asks Vince if he knows the girl, and Vince says no, even though he didn't even like go and look at her because she's like turned over on the bed. So Vince is like, how did she get in here? And Luke informs him that the door was locked and the alarm was off. So that means that the only way that she could have gotten in was with a key. And back in the interrogation room with Luke this time, we learned that Vince is an architect for a large firm, and we also learned that the guys have been sharing a loft on the 9th floor of a condominium or a building that Vincent helped design. So he's very successful. Luke denies knowing anything about the loft, but as you can tell, that is a lie, because in the flashback, he was definitely in the loft and he seemed pretty comfortable there, like he had been there before. The camera kind of like moves and you see a bruise under Luke's eye. So the detectives are like, where did you get that bruise? And he basically lies. He lies and says that he ran into a door.
Girl.
The detectives ask him where he was this morning, and he lies, saying that he was at breakfast with cheater number 3, who is Chris. And when Chris sees the state of the woman on the bed, he immediately assumes that it is his brother Philip. And child, Philip is a mess. I'm not surprised that they thought it was him when he first came in. And Chris thinks they should go to the cops. He's one of the first people to bring up that they should go to the cops. And Vince doesn't think it's a good idea because he doesn't want his wife or any of the other wives to find out about this loft. And they have to explain what's going on. But we're going to see that it doesn't matter. The wives find out about the loft. Right after this conversation, cheater number 4, and probably one of the worst out of all of them in the group, I would say that all of these guys suck equally if it were not for Marty and Phil. And Marty is cheater number 4. He's the one who burst into the loft. And side note, I hate him in this movie, but even with me like hating him in this movie, I cannot not see him as Cam from Modern Family. I love Modern Family. Me and my mom, we were like binge watching all of the episodes of Modern Family, and we would get a good couple of chuckles out of Cam and Mitchell. Like, I love them. So even though I hate him in this movie, he definitely eats in Modern Family. Like, I love Cam. Most of the guys are there. Nobody knows where Phil is, and Vince is still telling the guys, like, no police. We don't want any police. And we got in this together, so we'll get out of it together because we are friends. Right. Girl, I don't know what type of friends these are, but if your friends are willing to hype you up to cheat on the person that's supposed to be the most important in your life besides your children, then everybody ain't your friend. We are then taken back to a year earlier where the guys and their wives are at an event for Vince. I want to say that this is the opening of this building where the loft is held. Chris and his wife Allison greet and congratulate Vince on the opening of the building. And Vince's wife Barbara joins the conversation, and her and Chris have a little, funny little banter about Chris being a shrink and him being poor because he cares about people, and which is like, okay, girl, damn, I thought I was just doing what I needed to do. But you can tell that Allison is not really a fan of Chris's friends. She doesn't necessarily, there's never any like vitriol towards the wives. She blatantly just doesn't like Chris's friend. And it's very obvious to see why once we see Marty and hear what the fuck Marty has to say.
Babe, so hot. It's like they're in violation of the fucking fire code.
Marty, calm down. I see them. I can also see Mimi, your wife.
Okay, save me, help me.
I don't know if it's supposed to be charming or funny, but to me it's very annoying and gross, the things that he's saying. I don't find them funny at all or cute. It's not cute. It's actually disgusting. Next, after we move on from Marty being irritating, we see a blonde Bob who approaches Chris at the bar and introduces herself. She's obviously the one that he'll be having his affair with. It's not hard to tell. And something that like bothered me about this scene is that it oddly looks like they like dubbed over her voice. You can like, I don't know if you can tell sometimes, but you can tell like when they like had to like ADR somebody's voice, because it doesn't matter how much they try to match it to the environment, it still just sounds out of place. But that's besides the point. I just wanted to point that out. And we learned that her name is Anne, and she's there with the city councilman as his personal assistant. If you get in my drift, she personally assists him. You know what I'm saying? Chris's wife is kind of looking from afar, and she definitely peeps this interaction. This whole interaction is interrupted by a glass shattering where we finally meet our fifth and final cheater, Phil, who is there with twins, neither of them the person that he's actually dating. And Chris and Vince run over there to like see what's going on, because again, this is Vince's event. And Chris walks up to Phil and he like, where's Vicky, his fiance? And he like, look, man, don't be asking me all them questions. I love her, but right now, fuck that bitch.
Oh, come on, man. I'm still single, you know.
What are you doing?
What? It's not like I don't love my little Vicky, man. I love her madly. You know that, all right? It's not like I hate all the other women in the world, all right?
But he doesn't like say that exactly, like, but but damn near, that's damn near what he said. And he's obviously off his ass off something. We don't know yet, but he definitely looks like he's taken a couple substances, had a couple drinks. So Once all of the guys get there, they all dip off with Vince, and Vince shows them the loft. When he shows them the loft, it's not finished, but they're all just kind of walking around in it, and Vince is like propositioning them to share the loft. They can all split it 5 ways, and it's off the books, out of the way. And he propositions them to basically use it as a discreet way to have their affairs and cheat, calling it a oasis where you don't have to worry about credit card bills and hotel rooms that you can't explain and blah, 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 blah. Most of the guys are immediately into the idea, and Chris is hesitant, and he's like, nah, man, I'm not like that, whatever. To which Vince says,
"Come on, Chris. We're men. We're all a little like that."
yeah, whatever the fuck that means. Back in the present, in the loft, Luke almost breaks, saying that that he wants to go to the police, and Marty stops him. And Marty looks around the area where the girl is, and he notices that, like, behind a pillow, there is writing on the headboard in blood, and it says "Fatum nos ingibit," which means "Fate will unite us." Ooh. So it kind of looks like she just took her blood and went shoot, shoot, shoot on the headboard. And right after they find that, Phil finally shows up to the loft, and everybody is already on his ass. They like, "Where the fuck you been at? Why did you do this?" And da 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 da. And Luke is the first one to jump up. And Luke seemed a little timid, so when I first saw this, I was very shocked to see him like buck up like that. I'm like, dang, boy. The guys pull him off, and Vince steps up to ask Phil if he was at the loft the night before, and he says no, and then he immediately accuses Vince of being there the night before, and Vince was like, "Bro, come on, bro, I just asked you the same thing." So they start going back and forth, and as they're going back and forth, we shoot right back to the past. So many flashbacks. Like, it's so convoluted, and the story just jumps back and forth every time. It's like 2 minutes in the loft, then we somewhere else, we at another location. So bear with me. But we are back in the past again. I don't know how far in the past, but we're at Phil and Vicky's wedding. His fiance that he was cheating on with the twins at Vince's thing. Yeah, that fiance. So he's there, and you see them dancing, and it's cute and it's happy. And then we like cut over to Marty, and he's saying an annoying as old as outdated as ball and chain joke.
Well, Philip's got a ball and chain now. Who would have thunk it?
Ugh, I can't stand a nigga like that. Like, shut the fuck up. And the girl that Chris met at Vince's event, Anne, is there with the councilman. And the reason that the councilman is there, which I was confused at first, I'm like, why the fuck is the councilman here at Phil's wedding? But we get to that. So the councilman is there because he is close with Phil's father-in-law. Now, Phil's father-in-law is a contractor or something, and they call him the Man of Steel. So I will be referring to him as the Man of Steel and the councilman as the councilman. But they are close. That is the only reason that he is at this wedding. But for plot reasons, the reason that he is at this wedding, so Anne could be at the wedding so she could talk to Chris. But before they even have a conversation, Vince catches Chris looking at Anne. And again, he wants Chris to buy into the whole loft idea. So he is noticing that he's looking at Anne, and he's like, she's gorgeous, right? Chris doesn't answer. He just kind of laughs. And then Vince is like, "Oh, no, I mean the like wedding decorations." So he tries to like play it off as like, I was talking about the wedding decorations, but we know exactly what he's talking about. And Chris just kind of laughs it off and walks away. And Vince's grimy ass is like looking over at the wives and like smiling all devilishly. Billy Butcher is being real devilish. And then right after that, he goes over to the guys and he pulls a key out of his pocket and gives it to Phil for his wedding day. Yes, you heard me right. This trifling nigga got the keys that he wants them to use to go to the loft. He gave one of them to Phil on his wedding day as a wedding gift. Imagine your partner literally planning to cheat on you on your wedding day. He already been cheating on her, but like, dang, you couldn't give it a rest. Anyway, here's my thing with the whole idea of marriage. For me, it's like, especially being married monogamously, because there are different forms of love. There are different ways you can love people, and I get that, and I'm for that. But when it comes to like people who purposefully get into monogamous relationships just to immediately cheat on your partner, it irks my nerves. It drives me crazy, and it's extremely, to me, that's one of the most disrespectful things you could do, because this is supposed to be the person that you care about the most, and you're actively putting more effort into hiding affairs than just being in a faithful relationship and working on that. When you could have just had an open relationship, to be honest, you could have just opened it up for the both of y'all, but especially with straight people, that shit never works. So anyway, Vince also gives a key to the rest of the group, and Chris is still not really going for it. He's still saying that he doesn't want to do it yet. He's saying that he still doesn't want to do it, and he doesn't take one yet. He explains to the guys that deep down he knows that this will all blow up in their faces, and the guys are all just kind of playing it off like, just because I have a key to the loft, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna use it to cheat, and it's just a room, it's not that big of a deal, and this and this and that. But we all know that is not the truth. Chris walks off because he's like, yeah, whatever. And they try to play Chris as like the good guy, but I'm like, you literally have a group of shitty friends sitting right here in front of you, and you don't check them, you don't do anything to stop them. After they have that interaction, Chris walks away. Marty already has his sights set on somebody and he points at a girl across the yard and starts, spewing his disgusting bullshit. And Phil is like, oh, no, brother, you might as well go ahead and pick somebody else, because that's little sis right there, his little sister Zoe. And maybe I should mention right here that Phil and Chris are brothers. I think they're half brothers. They have the same mom but different dads. And then Phil and Zoe are siblings. They have the same dad. So we never see Chris and Zoe interact, but they are all like related. But Marty keeps going on saying all of this nasty stuff, and Phil has a bit of a temper. That's why they automatically assumed it was him who messed up old girl in the in the loft. But in this instance, I would have done the same thing that Phil did. Like, nigga, I just told you stop talking about my sister and you're still talking about her. But all of the men here are extremely hypocritical, because Phil can do his own wife dirty and just be so nasty and disrespectful to his own wife, but as soon as somebody has something to say about his little sister, now you want to grab niggas by the balls and formally threaten their ass. But it's too late, because all of the guys have taken notice that little sister's grown up and now they trying to get at her, which is weird, but they're all weird, so it's not really surprising. After this situation, we cut to Chris, and Chris follows Mrs. Bob, Ann into the garden, and they talk and they flirt, and it's obvious whatever, they're gonna wind up getting together. And I think like immediately after that conversation, right after Chris was just like, oh, I don't want a key yet, you guys, it's gonna blow up in you guys' face, he go to Vince like, yeah, let me go ahead and get that key. But we knew that was going to happen. We knew. And so Vince gives him the key. We are now not at the wedding anymore. We're back in the loft in the present. Well, not the present, but earlier that morning in the loft. And Vincent asks everybody to show their keys. Like, where are you guys' keys? And all of the guys have their key except for Chris. He tries to deflect, but the guys are like, where your key at? And then we cut back to the past again. And this time we are at a dinner party at Chris's house, and all of the couples are there. And the conversation is ironically about polyamory. And at this point in time, they don't really like specify this, but you can tell that at this point in time, the loft has been in use by the guys. The loft is in full effect by the guys. So they're having this conversation about polyamory. Vince's wife specifically is the one who's talking about her boss and how he's in a polyamorous relationship. And Marty and his wife are kind of like the funny ones. They're like the funny couple. And his wife, Mimi, says something along the lines of, you can barely handle one woman. What makes you think you can handle two? And Marty is obviously drunk off his ass, and he's like blabbing. And while he's blabbing, Chris is like, all right, dude, whatever the fuck. So he gets up and he goes in the house to try to convince his wife to come out and join everybody. And like I said, Allison is a real one. She's like, I do not fuck with these niggas. I'm in here cooking. Mind you, she got like 2 maids cooking or some shit. Like, she's not even doing anything. She's standing there drinking wine. She's like, yeah, I hope the pudgy one, talking about Marty. Anyway, she's like, I hope he don't like throw up on the carpet. And he's like, bro, my friends are never here. Just, come out and try to enjoy yourself, whatever. And she's like, fine, damn. So she gets up, she goes outside and sits at the table. Marty's still blabbing, and he's like going on this weird misogynistic rant about how women are so catty and so competitive, and why do you care that somebody has fake boobs, and blah 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 blah. Allison says something to him. It's not really that important, but the thing that did happen after that is Marty takes it upon himself to be extremely disrespectful because he's drunk and nobody checks him. His wife is just kind of like, oh, stop. smack this bitch. Like, tell him to shut the fuck up. My thing is, Chris, bitch ass, is just sitting here while his friend actively disrespects his wife, like fucking Ray from I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Let me hear it! Let it go, Barry!
You just sitting there and you not saying nothing, and your homeboy's being mad disrespectful to your wife and you because this is you and your wife's home, first of all. Second of all, that's your wife, nigga. Stand up for her, but you won't. You're not, because you actually don't like her and you disrespect her on a regular because you're cheating on her with a hooker. So obviously he's not going to say anything. After that happens, Allison gets back up and leaves. She's like, okay, see, I tried, but he get on my nerve. Let me go on back in his house. After that, Marty's still blabbing, and he's like, you know why your boss got caught? Because he doesn't know how to compartmentalize. And Barbara's like, so how would you compartmentalize? And this drunk bitch basically starts talking about the loft. Like, he's like, I would get a 1-bedroom loft. You know, it's off the books and this and this and that. And all of the wives are like looking at each other like, this is oddly specific. The guys are at the table like, oh, Marty, he's just fucking drunk. He's an idiot. And Luke is like, oh, no. So Marty's like leaning back in his chair, and Luke decides that he's going to kick the bottom of the chair up and flip Marty out his chair. Marty falls, and everybody's, oh, Marty, you good, bro? So they could change the subject, but the wives the damage is already done. Like, the wives already peeped that he's saying a little something too specific. Like, that was way too in there. So yeah, they help Marty up, and then after that, Luke and his wife excuse themselves to the bathroom because his wife Elsie has diabetes and he helps her take her insulin. So they leave and they go to the bathroom, but when they get to the bathroom, they see Phil in there skiing down the slopes. If you know what I mean, you know, he's in there doing his thing. And when Phil leaves, Elsie asks Luke, like, is there another woman? And Luke says that he would never cheat on his wife, which is not the answer to her question. And the way that he says it, he like kind of steps up to her, and it looks like she's afraid of him. He kind of may have a mean streak. We don't know. But Luke is like, out of all of the friends so far, he's presented himself as the more like timid friend. He's the one who has a level head and keeps everybody else calm. But from that interaction, there's probably more to that story. After that flashback, we're back in the loft, and Vince tells the guys that he thinks that they are being set up. He's basically like assessing the situation, and he's like looking at the way that the girl is set up. It just looks too staged, and everybody is acting, all of the guys are acting extremely suspicious, and nobody wants to admit that they know the woman. But one of them obviously has to know who this woman is, because she would not have gotten in this loft naked and all of this extra stuff without one of them. They are the only guys who have keys to this loft, and Vince is literally like, there are only 5 keys in existence, so there's no way that she got in here without either taking a stolen key or one of us giving her the key. Like, somebody needs to speak up. And then we smash cut to Chris smashing Anne, because of course he does. And he's talking to her and he's saying that he's in love with her and he's ready to tell his wife about them. And Anne is like, no, I don't want you to do that. I don't think you should do that. And he is still like, why not, or whatever. And she basically is just like, because I'm a whore, I am a hooker, you know, I sleep with people for money. And Chris is not having it. He done fell in love with the girl. He done fell in love with this girl that he's having an affair with. But I low key, in my opinion, I think that people be trying to convince themselves they in love with their mistress, so it'd be easier when their wife take everything. Girl, you not in love with her. But okay, anyway. And she like tell him like, boy, go home with your wife and kids. It's supposed to be emotional and sentimental, I guess, because she is like falling for him, but who cares? I didn't feel anything from that. You're a cheater, you're a liar. And she's giving bird brain activities like, this a married man with kids, and you happily being his mistress. Girl, you gotta look in the mirror. You gotta look in the mirror, Pooh. Marty is getting interrogated, and we learned that he and Mimi are going through a divorce at the moment. One of Marty's affair partners, her name is Dana. She thought there was gonna be more from the relationship, and I think she like showed up on their porch. I don't know if she like told the wife or she was like trying to convince Marty to be with her or whatever. But yeah, that happened, and Mimi found out about it, or Mimi was there, and she decided that she was going to leave him. Period. Right after this revelation, we find out how Marty met Dana. And then we flash back to a trip that Marty, Luke, and Vince went on to San Diego. So now let's break down the San Diego trip because a lot happens. A couple things happen, I should say. First, the guys are at the bar and the Man of Steel walks in. Phil's father-in-law, remember him? And Phil is there with someone who is not his wife. He's there with a obviously very younger woman, and he he notices Vince and the other guys are there. He recognizes them from Phil's wedding. He and Vince share some words about discretion, basically alluding to Vince that he will let him in on his waterfront project if Vince stays quiet about what he saw, right? Oh, and also Anne and the councilman are there too. Remember, the councilman is close with the Man of Steel. So Anne is there too. And she also sees Vince and the other guys. And it looks like she may know Vince from somewhere. So keep that in mind for later. Put that in your pocket if you need to. Second, Dana is there, and she approaches the guys. This is where Marty first met Dana, and he immediately starts fat shaming her. And Vince is the opposite. He wants to entertain her because fat chicks always have a hot friend. And they're talking to Dana for a little while, and the hot friend in question definitely does pop up later. And the hot friend in question is another blonde named Sarah Deakins. And she's got the hots for Vince, Mr. Billy Butcher. Her and Vince hit it off and they go skinny dipping in the pool. Mind you, I have not mentioned Luke yet because Luke is there. But Marty's with Dana and Vince is with Sarah. So Luke is just kind of there. But he does watch them both get undressed. You know, very homosexually, is very much given homosexual the way he's looking at Vince take his clothes off. And Sarah like offers for Luke to join, and Luke is like, no, I'm good. So with all of that going on, because both of the guys are kind of like hooking up with the girls that they met, he asked Marty for the room key, but Marty is messing with Dana, so there's that. And within this flashback, we flash forward a little bit and you see Sarah Deakins on the bed. She's like draped in a sheet and she's crying, drinking wine, and she's talking to someone like, oh, you're scared. I just think that you're scared. And we see that who she's talking to is Vince, and it seems as though Vince has broken up with Sarah at the moment, and she is not too happy about that. After that flashback, back in the loft, you know, earlier in the morning, Luke is staring at Vince and he puts together that Vince was in fact in the loft the night before, and he urges him to tell the boys. But before he could even, you know, open his mouth and say anything, the guys get a buzz from downstairs and they all run to the phone to see who's trying to buzz in. Chris picks up the phone and he tells the guys that it's a realtor, and they're like, a realtor? What the fuck? And he's basically saying that the realtor is saying that they're coming to look at the loft because somebody put the loft up for sale. And when he asked the realtor for a name, the name that the realtor gave was Sarah Deakins. Again, to kind of, you know, do a mini recap within the recap, Sarah Deakins is Vince's affair partner that he met back in San Diego, who was also the girl who was crying on the bed drinking the wine. The guys are confused. They're like, who is Sarah Deakins? Vince reminds Marty and Luke that they know who Sarah Deakins is because they met her in San Diego. And Vince, he finally admits that he was in the loft the night before because he realizes that Sarah Deakins is the girl who is dead on the bed there. So finally figures out who's laying in the bed. It's Sarah Deakins, and he tells the guys that he was in the loft the night before. So all of this rigmarole for Vince to admit that he was the one who was in the loft the night before, and he know exactly who is on the fucking bed. But he insists that she was alive when he left. So even still, it's like we've been dealing with this all morning, damn near, and you just now want to say that you was in the loft the night before after you done said it was Phil and everybody else? Like, boy. And so Chris is mad, obviously, because why didn't you just say that? And he like throws a glass against the wall. After that, we get another flashback, and Chris is following Anne around after she already done told him like, nigga, leave me alone. And they argue. It doesn't really matter what about. They argue about being in love and him wanting to be with her. Fine. I guess to like gain her trust, Chris gives her his key to the loft. This scene was literally only put there to show you where Chris's key went, but it doesn't matter. I guess they were like putting it there to make Anne a red herring, but Anne literally has no motive to kill Sarah, so it doesn't matter. And then also the store that they were arguing in is coincidentally the same store that Luke's wife works at. We never come back to this. It's never mentioned again. But it's in there. It's there to show you where Chris's key went. Back in the interrogation room with Luke, the detective kind of insinuates that Luke may have been jealous. So he may have, snapped because he was jealous. And Luke assumes that the detective is talking about he is jealous of Vince, and he's like, no, Vince is my closest friend. I love him. I'm not jealous of him. And the detective is like, no, I mean, like, you're jealous of the women. Maybe you're like obsessed with Vince.
Are you homosexual?
A what?
A homosexual.
I love the gays. Luke is like, no, I'm not gay. I'm not a homosexual. So that's simply just not the case. And it's kind of ironic that they have Luke being the one who is accused of being gay, because the actor Wentworth Miller in real life, he is a openly gay man. So that's kind of funny to put in there that he's the one who's being accused of being gay when he is actually gay in real life. So Phil is having a fit, and he's accusing Vince of killing Sarah Deakins, and he picks up the knife that's next to the bed where Sarah Deakins is laying, and he threatens Vince, and he's like acting like he's gonna stab him, and then he just tosses the knife to Vince, and Vince dumbass catches it, and now his prints are on the knife, and it's like, why would you do that? That's fucking stupid. We're back in the past after that little interaction that was dumb as fuck. Anyway, we're back in the past, and Marty is outside of the loft, and he's like banging on the door, and he's drunk, and he's crying. And Vince comes to open the door, and he's asking Vince, like, well, he's telling Vince, like, Mimi's leaving me. She says she wants to leave me. Can you just please go and talk to her? And da-da-da-da. And Vince is like, yeah, but I have company. Can you, like, leave, nigga? And he like, no, please, can you help me? Can you just convince her? Da-da-da-da. And Vince is like, yeah, bro, yeah. Just give me a minute, and I'll go talk to Mimi and see what I can do. So, let's keep that in mind for later. After that whole interaction and that flashback, Chris hands Vince a drink while he's sitting there with his head damn near in his hands, looking like a sad dog, because he knows Sarah Deakins, and he definitely was in the loft the night before. His guys are looking at him crazy. And Phil, picks another fight with Vince, and he's like, do you have the key to those handcuffs? Vince is like, no, I thought handcuffs were more your thing. And then we flash back. And this flashback is very disgusting. So trigger warning to the people who haven't seen this movie. But we flash back to a night where Phil was in the loft, and he's coked out of his mind. He's, been doing some skiing, and there's a woman handcuffed to the bed, and she's crying very hard and screaming, and he's screaming at her to shut up, and he's losing his mind. He's acting fucking crazy, and Vince and Chris walk just bust into the loft. I guess he called them to tell them what was going on. The woman immediately, as soon as the guys walk in, the woman is like, he raped me, and Chris, instead of beating his motherfucking ass, he's just yelling at him. And then he takes it upon himself to bribe this young girl and try to pay her off instead of going to the cops, because she obviously wants to go to the cops, and she's saying that Phil is a monster and he deserves to be in jail. And Chris is like, no, I have a friend who's a doctor and he can help you. We don't need to go to the police. And he gives her some money, and she he uncuffs her from the bed, which, thank you. He gives her some money, and she just kind of runs off, because obviously this was a very traumatizing situation for her, and we never hear from that girl again. So I don't know if she ever actually pressed charges on Phil, which she should, but it just goes to show how disgusting all of these guys are. So disgusting, they will go as far as to pay a girl off who was sexually assaulted, abused by one of their friends or their brothers or whatever. After that, we go back to the loft, and the guys are kind of having a conversation about what they should do next, and Luke speaks up hesitantly, and he tells the guys that he has something to show them. And bitch, this is how I knew that Luke was out of his fucking mind. This bitch has installed cameras in the fucking loft, and it's literally like one camera over the bed. And when they find this out, Phil rightfully punches him in his face, because what? But he gonna punch him in his face and call him a sick fuck, not the rapist. Like, boy, if you don't get your bitch ass. Nobody in this room is sicker than you. I'm so sorry. Vince obviously is mad, but Luke basically checks him and is like, look, I know everything that you've been up to, but don't worry, I'ma I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm not gonna say too much. Mind you, he's saying this in front of all of the guys, and if I was one of the guys, I would have been like, what the fuck you talking about over there? What you mean you gonna keep whatever it is to yourself? And that was my thing in the first watch. I'm sitting up here like, the guys are too cool about them having this little interaction for the situation they in. Everybody needs to know all information because this is a very high stress moment. There's literally a dead woman in the loft with us. We all cheat on our wives. For them to be having this little interaction and none of the guys to be asking any questions is very weird. Luke kind of goes on to say, like, you didn't let anybody know that you were going to be in the loft last night, which is against the rules. And that's not the first time that you have broken the rules. But again, I'll keep that to myself like I always do. I always keep your secrets and blah, 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 blah. That was like the end of that flashback. We don't get much of that. So now we flash back to a big charity event that's being thrown by Phil's father-in-law. The Man of Steel is having a charity event, and this is kind of where most of the meat of things happen. All of those little seeds planted, was there. But this is where most of the messy shit happens, okay? Bear with me while I explain. I want to say that this charity event was held the night before Sarah's body was found in the loft. Okay, just putting that out there so you'll know where we are in the timeline. Of course, all of the guys and their wives are at this event because they have to, make appearances. And Phil and Vince are talking, and Phil's messy ass is like, hey, have you heard anything about the waterfront project? Vince is like, oh yeah, the Man of Steel told me that they're just waiting for the permits to get approved and we're all good. And Phil's like, yeah, that's funny because I heard that everything was approved already, which he did kind of eat that up. Like, why would you say that? You messy as fuck. Obviously, Vince did not take that light. So he approaches the Man of Steel, the councilman, and both of their wives, kind of just, standing there and greeting people. He and Vince, greets everybody, and then he slightly kind of brings up San Diego and is kind of talking about how, we can't afford, men like us can't afford to get exposed and all of the things we're at risk of losing and da-da-da-da-da. And they have this little interaction. Nothing really comes from it until later. After that, Vince is kind of working the room and he's walking past, looking at people, and we see Zoe again, and he starts making eyes at Zoe and she starts making googly eyes back. They, seem to have met, so to speak. And after that, at one of the blackjack tables, we see Marty, and he's playing and he's winning. And again, Marty and his wife are going through a divorce at the moment. So his wife comes and she's high key treating his ass.
Enough for the alimony. Because I booted you out doesn't mean I'm stuck at home.
Pumpkin, I want to come back. I know I screwed up once. I was drunk off my ass. I swear it didn't mean a damn thing.
Something I don't understand about men. If it doesn't mean anything, why bother?
I promise I'll change.
Into what? A frog?
Through all of that teasing, she kind of mentions like, hey, who's to say that I haven't already gotten back at you? You know what I'm saying? Who's to say I haven't got my get back? You know what I'm saying? Got it back in blood. She starts to kind of like make hints at who it might be. She like, ooh, what about Chris? He's kind of cute. And then she's like, or what about Vincent? Like it may have been that night that you sent him over to talk to me. Keep that in mind that she said that for later. She is messy as fuck, but she's funny. Girl, do you? Because he was doing him. Phil makes his way over to his wife, Vicky, because he did peep that Zoe was in the building. He didn't know that she was going to be there. So he's kind of mad, and he's like, he goes over to Vicky, and he's like, why did you get Zoe a ticket to the event? I don't like her at these kind of things. And he's mad because she's over there cackling with some boys. And I think she's like 19, 20 years old, which is like, but she over there having a good time. So he goes up to Vicky, and he's like, I told you not to do that. Why is my sister here? She looks like a whore. Which, girl, bye. And his wife is like, oh, I thought you liked whores and this and that, and both of them are on drugs. And he like, girl, fuck you, I'm finna go. He gave up real fast after that. But they having problems too, so it's not just Marty and his wife. Phil and his wife are also having problems because they both on drugs. She know that Phil ain't shit. He said, if you don't like it, get a divorce. And she was like, oh yeah, trust me, I will, and I'm gonna keep everything because remember, you signed a prenup, poo-poo. So you might want to go get at one of these tables and hope you can make next month's rent. I said, okay, get his ass up out of here. Hopefully he end up in jail. How about that? The fuck? Chris is still chasing Anne around. He looks like a sad little puppy, and I don't feel bad for him at all. But Anne does finally text him back, and she sends him a text to lure him into the bathroom. But when he gets to the bathroom, the councilman is there and he is talking to Chris, not about Anne. He wants to talk to Chris about Vince. He basically says, hey, you need to do something about Vince before we have a problem. And Chris, the sappy ass, is like, look, I don't give a fuck about what you and Vince got going on. I want to talk about Anne. Chris wants the councilman to leave her alone, and the councilman is just kind of like, well, no, I don't want to do that. It's up to her. It's not up to you. And Chris is like, well, you can stop paying her because she loves me and I've never had to pay for her to have sex with me. And the councilman is like, yeah, nigga, you never had to pay for her to have sex with you. And Chris is kind of gagged at that. And before they could go into detail more, Anne pops out and is like, okay, that's enough. That's enough, nigga. You done said too much. And she like kind of tries to run out of the bathroom again and is like, it's not gonna work. No. Chris was like, at least let me know what is the councilman talking about. And Anne is like, look, the first time me and you hooked up, it was paid for. But all the other times after that, that was on my own because I actually like you and you're the only one who can hurt me and blah, 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 blah. And Chris is like, okay, who paid? Who paid? And she just rushes out of the bathroom. That's the end of that conversation. Phil is still on a rampage and he goes over to Zoe and the high rollers that she's talking to, and they're cackling and they're laughing. He's trying to like pull her away from them. He gets into a fight with the guys. Shocker. The Man of Steel sees this and he's like, bro, I don't ever want to see you again near my house or my daughter. I don't want to see you again. And the security escort him out. So that kind of explains why Phil was nowhere to be found that morning. Everybody was kind of looking for him. They didn't know where he went. After security escorts him out and that altercation, Zoe runs to Vince and starts crying in his arms. And she is a little too familiar, if you ask me. It's given like, save me, man, my man, save me, please, I'm so sad. That's what it's given. Oh, I forgot to mention that Sarah Deakins is also at this party. She was in the bathroom when Chris and the councilman were in the bathroom. She was in there and she was coming out. So Sarah Deakins is at this party as well, but she sees the interaction between Zoe and Vince. And she walks up and she basically asks him, so like, what's your grand total of hoes? How many you got? Because I know it's just not me, Zoe, peep, and your wife, so who else do you have? And Vince is like, look, I don't want to talk about this right now. My wife is literally over there, so could you like leave me alone? And she's like, no. She asks him like, do you love me? And he says yes. He's lying. Obviously he does not love this woman. And she tells him that he should leave his wife, and he says that's just way too complicated. And girl, that's what they all say. They all say it's too complicated. So, but I don't know what she expected. So she decides that she's going to go tell his wife herself, and she starts making her way over there, literally like walking over to the wives. And I think it's Mimi, Barbara, and Elsie who are standing over there, and they're kind of looking like, who is this lady walking towards us? And Vince is like walking behind her, trying to like call her name. He's like, Sarah, trying not to act suspicious, but it's too late for that. And right before she can even get to the wives, Luke again comes and saves them. He saved them before when Marty was running his mouth at the dinner party, and now he's saving them again by stopping her. He bumps into Sarah and basically tells her like, hey, if you don't want to do that, if you do, you're gonna regret it. So he kind of threatens her, and she changes her mind immediately after that and just walks away. After this happens, after Vince's life damn near flashed before his eyes, he's just kind of sitting there, standing there in the party, and he's looking around, and he's looking at all of the wives, and he's more and more paranoid. You can kind of like hear him speaking, and it's intercut with him at the party and him in the loft. So it's going back and forth, and he starts like mumbling to himself like he thinks that he's figured it out. And his theory is the wives have found out about the loft and they're setting the guys up. Like I said, this moment is intercut with him in the loft. So now we're back in the loft with the rest of the guys, and the guys are kind of surrounding him. He looks like he's been drugged. His words start to slur, and he like collapses on the couch. And Chris asks him, why'd you do it? Vince is still trying to explain like, no, it wasn't me. It was the wives. The wives found out. They found out. And Luke chimes in and is like,
Once your friends, we found out.
what, you may ask? In short, this is a mess. Anyway, Vince has been fucking over all of his friends by fucking people that the guys are close to. And what I mean by that is in the sense that in the sense that, remember those cameras that Luke put in the loft and all of those cryptic ass messages that he was giving to Vince? So that is explained through more flashbacks. Exactly, you got it. The stuff that Vince was doing, Luke found out about through his tapes, and what he found was Vince was fucking on Zoe, Phil's little sister, even though he told him, like, he told all of the guys, back the fuck off. He was messing with Chris's mistress, and he's the one who paid in to tempt Chris so he can buy into the idea of the loft anyway, because Vince really wanted Chris to use the loft for some reason. And he also slept with Marty's ex-wife the night that he went to convince her to take Marty back, which is exactly what she said at the blackjack table. So that's why I say keep that in mind, because he definitely she definitely did get back, and it's on videotape. It's all of this is on candid camera, and that is embarrassing. We're gonna get into how all of the guys found out about this and what the actual plan was. Okay, so basically this was a scheme the guys set up to come
To you with the bullshit.
No, but seriously, this is the dumbest fucking plan I've ever heard of in my life because of 2 words: autopsy reports. Let's get into the plan again. Stick with me, because this is all very convoluted and fucking stupid. So back earlier that morning, before Vince came, Luke did find Sarah's body in the bed, and she was surrounded by pills and an empty wine bottle. So we can assume that, you know, she took a couple more pills and drunk that wine down. And so when Luke found her, he phoned all of the guys, and all of the guys are like, dude, what are we supposed to do with this? And Chris is like, oh, I found a side note. He gives the side note to Chris, and the side note reads, see you in the next life. Okay, so side note was found by Luke. Luke gave it to Chris, and it reads, see you in the next life. The guys are trying to figure out what to do with the body, and Marty is like, man, fuck all of that. Where is Vince? And Luke said he didn't call Vince. He called all of the guys, but he did not call Vince. And they're like, why? And that's when Luke shows them the tapes of all of the stuff that Vince has been up to. But he also, you know, did still get roughed up the first time by Phil, because nigga, you have been recording all of us doing dirt. That's some Batman level fuckery right there. Like, you know how Batman got fouls on all of the Justice League? Like, that is crazy. Because of this like revelation and all of these findings, the guys basically came up with an idea to expose Vince's affairs whilst, you know, keeping theirs a secret, or acting like they don't, you know about the loft. So that's why in the interrogations, all of the guys have been acting like they don't know anything about the loft, and Luke won't admit that he's ever been to the loft and all of that, because the plan was to get Vince to admit that he was in the loft the night before. And Chris basically is like, once he admits that, once we have clear proof that he was in the loft the night before, I'll give you guys a signal. He was saying like, I'll just like break a glass or something. So that's why after Vince admitted that he was in the loft the night before, Chris wasn't genuinely mad. He used him throwing the glass as a signal to go through with the plan. So that's what they did. And the plan was to basically handcuff him to Sarah's body, to stage it to look like Sarah had called him to the loft and she drugged him and handcuffed herself to him and then herself. Like, I don't know if y'all ever seen, I forget what that, I think it's literally called Till Death Do Us Part or something like that, with Megan Fox, where she was in an abusive relationship with her husband and he handcuffed himself to her and himself. So yeah, it's kind of like that, but that was the plan. They wanted it to be ruled a and they were just gonna go, they thought they were gonna go on about their lives. And me explaining that, you can see how fucking stupid that is, right? Because regardless of what you guys made it look like, an autopsy will still be performed on the body. Once they came up with the plan, they left Phil there to stage the body how it was when they found it. But they didn't think that Phil was gonna do that crazy shit that he did. He like slit, I can't say that, but he did some very graphic things, and he also took her blood and put it on the headboard. So the guys were genuinely not expecting her to look like that when they came back. But most of the guys didn't necessarily want Vince to go to jail or to go down for her murder. They just wanted his affair to be exposed. So, and they wanted the death to be ruled I don't know how they thought they were going to get away with it. Again, like, y'all put more effort into coming up with a way to cheat on y'all wives than to hide it in the worst case scenario. Like, like, you guys, they're all idiots. We're fully caught up on everything. And of course, the coroners performed a autopsy on the body, and it is inconsistent with the story that the men have been telling. So the female detective basically goes into the interrogation room with Chris and is like, you guys are free to go. And she tells them that maybe Vince did have something to hide. And Chris is like, what? And she's like, Sarah Deacon's murder. And Chris is like, murder? Like, what do you mean? Based on the findings of the autopsy, the sleeping pills didn't kill Sarah. She was still very much alive, and she didn't have hesitation marks on her wrist, because when people attempt those things, they have a hard time doing it. So there were no hesitation marks on her wrist, and there was also no side note. You normally would have a note if there was a, and it is not there. Again, Luke gave the side note to Chris, and Chris is looking like, damn, what happened to the note? Like, I thought I left it in my coat pocket. So Chris checks his pocket. The note is not there. We cut back to the loft, and we see it's later on in the evening. We're fully in the present now. And we see that Luke has gone back to the loft, and Chris is there waiting for him. He asked Luke, where's Sarah? I know. And Luke tries to gaslight Chris, telling him like, hey, I don't know what happened to it. Didn't you have it? What do you mean? Why are you asking me? I gave it to you. But Chris is not falling for that. He's definitely one step ahead, because Chris was trying to figure out when Luke had taken the suicide note. And it clicked to him that Luke had the opportunity to take the suicide note when there was a buzz downstairs from the realtor. That realization made him call the realtor. And when Chris called the office, the only thing that they gave him was a phone number. So we get another revelation that Luke is actually the one who killed Sarah Deakins. Well, he tried to kill Sarah Deakins because he was not in love with Vince, even though the seeds were planted for him to be in love with Vince. Luke took the note because it was his handwriting on the note, and he didn't want the cops to analyze that note, all because he was in love with Sarah Deakins. I know you guys were probably wondering what Vince did to Luke for him to be so gung-ho about this plan and, basically coming up with the whole plan and everything. Vince was messing around with Sarah. Sarah fell in love with Vince, but Luke was in love with Sarah, and she did not reciprocate those feelings. And when Luke's wife asked him, was there another woman? Like I said, he did not answer clearly. He just kind of brushed it off and was like, oh, I'm not cheating on you. But the answer was really yes, there was another woman. He was madly in love with Sarah Deakins. Right after he intercepted the almost snitching of Sarah Deakins when she was about to go snitch, he chased her outside and basically confessed his feelings, and she told him, look, I don't feel that way about you. And she runs off in the rain, and it's dramatic. And when he turns around to go back in the building, he sees that his wife, Elsie, is standing there looking at him through the glass. That same night that all of this had happened, Luke assumed that Vince was going to go to the loft with Sarah until he waited in his little hidey room where he has the cameras and stuff until Vince left, and went in there after Vince left and talked to Sarah and basically lured her into some comfort, and he drugged her and shot her with insulin and gave her an insulin OD. But the insulin OD did not work. She was very much still alive that morning when they found her again, and when Phil cut her wrist, that is what actually killed her, because he her wrist and she bled out. But she was just kind of disoriented in sleep that morning because of all of the drugs. She had taken sleeping pills, she had taken insulin, so it was just and she was drinking, so it was a lot of stuff keeping her from moving. So she did look dead. None of them tried to check her pulse or nothing. They just assumed that she was dead, which is not funny. It's not funny. But yeah, so once Phil decided to stage the body and he started to do all that crazy shit, he was having flashbacks y'all ever seen The Best Man when Morris Chestnut is getting married and he having flashbacks of his girlfriend getting by Tay Diggs. Yeah. So Phil actually did murder her. But anyway, yeah, let's get to the end of this movie. So back in the present, Luke is having a mental breakdown and he pulls a knife on Chris and they get into a fight. He forces him to the balcony and they fight, they argue. Chris wins the fight, obviously, because Chris is supposed to be the hero of the movie. He's the one with a moral compass, which he is not. And after Chris wins, Luke is like, hey, you got me. So tell the wife and kids I love them, and he pieces out over the balcony. So Luke was in fact the man that we saw at the beginning of the movie falling onto the car. I bet you forgot all about that shit happening, didn't you? I'm sure you forgot that was even a part of this movie with all of the bullshit they got going on. Yes, so Luke was the guy who fucking fell off the roof. and died. The movie ends with a recap of where all of the guys are 6 months after the bullshit. Marty and his wife are back together. Okay, y'all gonna hate me for this, but that's probably the most realistic thing to happen in this movie, and I hate that for women. I hate that for you. I truly do, because there are a lot of women who husbands will do them dirty, talk crazy as fuck behind their back. They will find the messages. They will meet the mistress, all of that, and they will still get back with a trifling ass nigga. And I guess Mimi got back with him because she like, well, I cheated back, so I guess we can get back together. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But girl, you should have left his ass. Anyway, they back together. I'm irritated. Phil is awaiting trial for Sarah's murder because he's a fucking idiot, and they need to go ahead and tack that sexual assault onto that Jew. That nigga needs to be put away for good. Chris's wife divorced him, and he starts dating Anne. Whoop-de-fucking-do. And big boy Billy Butcher, Vince, is now divorced, and he lives in that loft, that condo that he was using to cheat on his wife because it's, quote, the only thing she let him keep in the divorce. Period. I just want to say period again, because you ate that. You did. He don't deserve shit but that piece of shit that he was using to cheat on you. Let him have. You should have took that too. The fuck? But anyway, yeah, that bitch tried it. You nasty trifling bitch. But also, for those who haven't seen this movie, that was foreshadowed at the dinner party, because his wife goes on to explain that his boss is now living in a 1-bedroom apartment with his mistress because the wife took everything.
He and his concubine are now cramped in a tiny 1-bedroom condo, but I'm guessing he's happy. She's blonde, 23, with a brand new pair of fake breasts.
She definitely ate when she said that. She said he went from polyamory to alimony. I said, okay, I know that's right, girl. Get yours, because be so fucking for real. But anyway, fuck all these bitch ass niggas. I hate them all. I hate them all, and they're so fucking dumb. In my opinion, all of these men should be in jail. This movie has no payoff at all. For all of the build up and all of the twists and turns, the ending was extremely lackluster, in my opinion. I hate that any of these men got a happy ending. I can't stand it. It grinds my gears. It makes my ass itch. They all knowingly participated in this plot that wound up killing a girl. She was actually alive. I want to reiterate, she was alive when the guys found her that morning, but they wanted to get back at their homie for doing them wrong so bad that they wound up killing a girl. And all of them are implicated in this girl's murder. All of them should be in jail. They should get like tampering with evidence or filing a false report. All of them should get jail time for something, and they don't. They all get to walk free, and that irritates me, and it doesn't make sense. But the behaviors and the rhetoric of these men is not far off from real life, which is the sad part. Red pill content is very rampant. All of these alpha male podcasts and these high value males and all this bullshit, it is very, very rampant on the internet amongst young men. The male loneliness epidemic is making its waves through the world at the moment. Men are as lonely as ever, and then you find movies like this and ideas like this, and you like, well, yes. But my whole thing with these guys is like, and why I say it is realistic for something like this to happen, is because men will hype their friends up to ruin the lives of the women that they love, which you can't convince me that you love a woman and you will treat her like that, downright just disrespect her. But men will hype their friends up to do that shit and then be mad when they find out that their friend is doing grimy shit to them too. It's like, what did you expect? Your friend's a loser. One thing that I did like though was this like little exploration, and let me cook here. I might be reaching because this movie's not good. I want to make that clear. This movie's not good. But I do think that it could have touched on like homoeroticism within male friendships. Like, why do men bond over their sexual conquest? And so much so in this movie, they are okay with sharing a loft that has one bed that all of them know that the other has had sex in or will have sex in. You know what I'm saying? Why does Luke like to watch his boys getting down? Why was Vince so keen on all of the men being involved in the loft and using the loft? Like, all of these themes and all of these questions could have been really cool to see answered or to see portrayed in the movie, but they wussed out. Like, of course, you know, I had to put my little gay 2 cents in there. I do think that it is very gay for men to do stuff like that. What are you getting from hearing about your boys' sexual encounters? Have you ever, if you're a man, a straight man, and you know, partake in this kind of behavior, I doubt that you are one of those men watching this channel. But if you are one of those men, have you ever asked yourself, why do you care about your friends' sexual experiences? Why are y'all so quick to tell each other? You know what I mean? But anyway, what do I know? I'm a lesbian. Men are not my wheelhouse. And I just had to make it a little gay because it is a movie about 5 niggas sharing a house to fuck on bitches. Like, that's homosexual. That is homosexual to me. Anyways, justice for Sarah Deakins and the rest of these wives, because they ain't shit ass niggas really put them in a weird predicament. I really want to know what was going through the wives' minds when all of this was coming out. Like, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of November. I would love for that to be my case. And I got some cool stuff coming for December. I do plan on doing Christmas themed movies. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that. Sorry for the late post this week. My birthday week threw everything off, and this is one of the only quiet moments that I've had in the house, which is not quiet because I can hear my auntie like outside of my room on speaker. So I'm supposed to be going to see Wicked 2 in a couple hours. Mind you, I have not seen the first one. So yeah, again, if you are one of my friends or family watching, I love ya, and I hope to see y'all in the next